Welcome back to the Empower Ed Chat, a series dedicated to the inclusion, achievement, and empowerment of all learners. I'm Jenna Rufo, and I'm here today with part 2 of our two-part series, Leading During a Pandemic. If you joined me last time, you had the opportunity to listen to two fantastic administrators, Dr. Robyn Viloria Wiens from Clayton, Missouri, an assistant superintendent, and Kimberly Zern Evelti, the Director of Curriculum for Williston Northampton School in Massachusetts. In our last episode, we discussed some of the unique challenges to educational administration during COVID-19. In this episode, Kim, Robyn, and I share how we will take the lessons we've learned from the pandemic and how we can use those lessons to transform education into newer and better ways. Let's get started. And so I just wanted to hear from both of you as to where do you see things going with education as we move ahead, or where would you like to see it go based on the lessons that we've learned?
You know, this has really revealed so many inequities that we knew already existed in public education. And I hope that this is an opportunity for us to completely reassemble it in a way that makes sense for this time and this age of our children.
It really is a moment where we have this opportunity. And, you know, if we think kind of about the whole history of education, it really hasn't changed a whole lot. You know, since the industrial era, we have everybody, you know, in desks and they go from one classroom to the next at the sound of a bell. And really, I think what this is highlighting is that now is the time. So, you know, we have kids who are coming at us from all different backgrounds, abilities, language, cultures, and we really haven't been serving them all that well for this time. And as we've seen through the pandemic, some of those gaps have been widened, or the inequities are more evident. So I think it really is time to look at how can we reshape our system so that it is more welcoming and inclusive of all learners. Now for me, so my background is in special education, so I always come at it from that lens. I think the practices that support students with IEPs and children with disabilities are really good practices for everyone. So if we are able to look at more differentiation or a flexible school day, things of that nature, I think that's really the way to go, because whenever we do fully return to school and we have all of these students coming back, it's not just our kids with IEPs who are going to have a challenge after such a long time away from school. So if our only prescription for additional supports or services is special education, then, you know, we're going to have a really rude awakening because we're going to have a lot of referrals. So I think really looking at how are we structuring our intervention or instruction more flexibly so that we are meeting kids where they're at, and we're not just relying on a separate system or service to kind of fix, if you will, whatever those deficits are.
Yeah, and I think also there's a social emotional learning piece happening that I think is important for us to learn from as well. I think particularly at middle school and high school, where in my school district, we've seen a tremendous increase in 504s related to anxiety and depression. And when we look at the triggers for some of the challenges associated with anxiety and depression, some of them, depending on the age group, are very much associated with kind of the physical setting, you know, and the times of the day where they feel the most anxious because, you know, of very intense fear of certain things happening, et cetera. And it's been really interesting because the counselors are telling me that for some of those students, they're actually thriving in a remote setting because the things that have made them the most anxious are no longer there. So now they can better concentrate on, you know, the content and, you know, engaging in the conversations when they feel ready to engage, et cetera. And so I think when we think about the diversity of our learners and the styles and all the different things they need, that like that's, you know, they are now thriving in a way that we probably weren't expecting because we were assuming that all children love being in person and all children love being, you know, classroom with, you know, 20 some other classmates, and that's not always true. And some other things I've observed at the elementary school level is, you know, because of the safety and risk mitigation things that we have in place in cohorting all children during all times of their day, now you have a classroom that's literally this group of children is together the entire time. They're on the same section of the playground together. They're not eating in the cafeteria, so they're not choosing where they get to sit. They're sitting back in their individual little desk, in their classroom, which then means, guess what? Everybody's part of the lunch conversation, and if you're a child who just needs to power down, you can do that. You've got your little trifold up, you can eat your lunch. You don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to, but if you want to be included in the conversation, you kind of already are, because they're all together. So it's been really interesting to observe those things where you see students are just automatically more included, simply because of the risk mitigation things we've put into place. And so I will be very interested to see how this plays out over time. I think the teachers I've talked to already have said that their classrooms have a more family feel, and that students are interacting more, with other students who maybe they previously didn't. And obviously these are all under very unique circumstances, but I think it is teaching adults a lot of different things about how resilient our young people are.
Yeah, such a great point. And one of the things, as you were talking about everyone kind of being together in that core classroom community, one of the things that brought to mind for me is a lot of times now in upper elementary grades, there's been a trend towards departmentalization where, in fourth or fifth and sixth grades, sixth more middle school, but fourth and fifth grades kind of going to one teacher for math and another teacher for science and another for ELA, another for social studies. With the idea being that, okay, we can get some more of that content expertise to students if we create it in this way. But I think to your point, there really are a lot of benefits towards having that classroom community in terms of, you have that more sense of a positive environment, positive school climate and community when you're with those same kids. You have one teacher that's looking at all of those different parts instead of looking at it so separately. I wanted to talk a little bit about the challenges as an administrator, not necessarily related to social distancing and masking and educationally, but more of that personal piece and the emotional toll and stress. And Kim, I'm going to kick it to you because you said something, I guess we were a few months into the pandemic, and it has stuck with me this whole time. You said, the communal spirit for the collective good is waning. And so I think at first everybody was like, yes, we're all hands in, we're going to do this together. And then as this drags on and on and on, it gets really exhausting and people get frustrated. So just any tips or thoughts on, managing that stress and interacting positively with colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, I feel really lucky because I was a part of an incredibly functional team, and we were able to do, everything we set out to do from the get-go. That's not to say that it wasn't incredibly difficult and, really wore on all of us. And as I said earlier, right as we were about to go for spring break, when we usually have a time to sort of take a breath, everything hit. So we reinvented our school once over spring break, broke for summer, reinvented our school entirely all over again over the course of summer. Nobody took any vacation during the summer. And then we started our school year. We actually started early so that we could have some quarantine time for our boarding students. So we've been going nonstop all year long, which is really hard. And I would say, to layer on top of that, I'm a person who has an elementary school student who's been fully online this entire year, since March. So I've been pulling double duty as a parent with a student at home and then as a full-time administrator. Also, doing the rest of my school duties like dorm duty and lunch duty and advising duty and all of those things. So I would say, the best things that have happened to me is that I'm able to really communicate with the other administrators in my department. They're very supportive of me. We're very supportive of each other. So I feel like when we need something, we're able to ask for it. So that's been really great that we've been able to be there for one another. I think that it's important, to be able to talk about it to the entire community about what it takes also to try to ask for a little patience and forgiveness, because I think we, administrators like to be the hero and the one with all the answers, and people are just used to getting everything they need from us. So to be able to say, it will just take an extra week or just give me a minute. I need some time, I think has been also an important lesson for the whole community.
Yeah, definitely. This has been so polarizing and there's been so much, I guess the word I used was outrage on either sides about certain things in terms of everybody has to wear a mask. What do you mean everyone needs to wear a mask? My kid's not getting enough work. This online stuff is too much work. So you're constantly kind of being tugged between, these two feelings or beliefs, and everybody's really struggling, but it is hard to be in the middle of that. And I think one of the things that you had mentioned, Kim, which I certainly felt as well, is, you kind of spend all your time preparing for something and you're like, okay, we're going to make this online learning be really, really great. And then surprise, you know what, now we're going to do hybrid. And then we go back to hybrid. You know what, the cases are rising. Now we're going back online. You're putting all your energy into doing it one way for something that maybe lasts a couple weeks. And then you have to put all your energy into a new project too. So that it's so tough.
Yeah, one of the counselors I work with shared a very wise quote with me, and it was, people lose their way when they lose their why. And that has really helped keep me centered since the beginning of the school year, because as Kim said, I mean, since March, I just feel like it's just been relentless, and constantly having to put together plans, scrap the plan because the public health guidelines have changed. And no, new CDC guidelines, just so many moving targets all the time. And I would say for me personally, I think at the beginning in March, everything, any new change, I think threw me into a place of oh my gosh, we got to do something right now, and kind of in that fight or flight. But I think over the course of the summer, I realized there is so much out of our control right now. So if I get ramped up to this level with every single change, I'm not going to have anything left to give. And I just need to, at this point, just accept that every day there's going to be a curveball. And so I shouldn't, sit and let myself spin too out of control, because again, it's not going to be energy used in a worthwhile way. And I need that energy. I need that energy because I have to come up with a new plan for something. So I think when school started, I really kind of settled down and just have really focused on, one, what's my why? And two, just really staying focused on doing what's right for kids. Even if that ends up, it means it's going to be hard on adults, because everything's hard on all of us right now, right? I mean, there's nobody that's, getting off easy in this situation. And using a lot of empathy. So when even people are coming with concerns and maybe they're communicating in a style they wouldn't normally communicate in, really trying to be patient and put myself in their shoes to really understand where the fear and the anxiety are coming from. But I do also wonder too, we still got a lot of school year ahead of us. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about and been trying to kind of share with others is just, we have to have a long game in mind too. So even if the plan right now is not what you had hoped was going to happen, we're still here to educate kids and we still have a whole school year ahead of us. And we need to be doing things and treating each other in a way that's going to nurture and strengthen our relationships, not destroy them, because we need each other right now. We need each other really badly. We need to be able to lean on each other because we're all so tired. We've been doing this since March. And so, I've just been working really hard to just stay focused on what we need to do right for kids.
I love that quote, Robyn, about your why. And it was interesting here at the beginning of the school year, as we were starting to bring faculty back and talk about our plans for bringing students in, there was a lot of fear, naturally. And I think that, it was apparent in August and September. It's still out there for schools that haven't opened in person yet. Teachers are afraid to come back to the classroom, and that's totally reasonable. But we had this really great, I feel like, shared experience when our students started to come back to campus, where we were like, oh, right, our kids, they're here and we're so happy they're here, and this feels right, and we'll do what we have to do and we'll take our precautions, and it just made it sort of all feel worth it. And I feel like we need to keep reminding each other of that. And I think taking small wins where we can find them is also really helpful. We're a school on trimesters, so we finished a trimester. And that felt huge, right? Like we never thought we'd get here, and we did. So I feel like it's important to also celebrate the little wins that we can find and the people and all of their contributions to it.
Great. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap it up for today. And I just wanted to say that I am so grateful that as part of my support network, I have the two of you, my good friends, for a very long time now. And it comforts me and should comfort everyone else to know that there are women of such high quality and empathy and compassion leading our schools during this time. So thank you both for being with me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Jenna.
Let's take a minute to recap our key takeaways from this two-part series. Number one, let's recognize that the pre-pandemic system wasn't supporting everyone. Let's take this moment and use it as an opportunity to redesign our education system in newer and better ways. Number two, inclusive practices like differentiating instruction, providing flexibility, and offering choices are practices that are good for all students, not just kids with disabilities. We were much more apt to use these practices during the pandemic, so let's keep a good thing going. 3, build on practices that support tighter-knit classroom communities. While there were lots of challenges associated with COVID, some classrooms became more family-like and closer-knit due to the cohorting. How can we continue this? Number 4, personalized learning. All students do not need to be learning the exact same thing at the exact same time at the exact same pace. Take this moment to personalize our systems so that educational experiences are meaningful for all of our learners. Number 5, once and for all, let's dismantle our separate systems of special education and regular education. When our students return from the pandemic, after being out of school or having education interrupted for so many times over the course of the last year, they are all going to be at different places. They will all have gaps. They will all have needs. So instead of relying on a separate system to address those deficits, let's blend our resources and work together to provide an inclusive experience for all children. Thanks everyone for being here with me today. And don't forget to head on over to my website, and please be sure to stay in touch by visiting www.jennarufo.com/contact to get updates on my latest videos, blog posts, offerings, and more. Until then, include, achieve, and empower. Thank you.